So here it goes.
So, Mark, good morning.
Hey, Sasha. Good to see you, man. Finally, right?
It's not Microsoft technology, so we are struggling a little bit here. Good morning, Mark. And we had last session, our session, a couple of weeks back. So, can you just quickly tell me, what happened in your world since we spoke last time?
Well, lots of things happened in this time.
What coach is doing is in general like a good idea to get some kind of inputs of what happened, but from the perspective of what are the learnings, and what is client bringing today. So it's always a good idea to start a little bit more abstract.
Man, the world is changing ever so rapidly, feels like, right? I mean, still a busy period business-wise. We got lots of engagements going on with customers, and at the same time trying to find a suitable setup, let's say, for the holidays ahead with family and everything. Still trying to keep the restrictions, that are in place for can I meet my mom now? How many people can we put together? So that's what what's happened since we last spoke. Also think I made some good progress, on my whole, let's say, aspirational journey to becoming a manager. When it comes to the book that we talked about, the high altitude leadership. So I'm digging into it and I'm liking it. At the same time, it's not as easy as reading a novel that you just go through, quietly and slowly. So no, it's good. I would say good progress there on my side. I hope same holds true for you.
Yeah. So as you can hear, like we talk about development of a person from one position to another. So the person was a little bit abstract, but mentioning a couple of things that are happening today. I mean, it's just the beginning of the conversation.
No, it's fine. So, Mike, giving your last period and the things that we agreed, and now the book that you're reading and everything else. So, what are the main learnings out of that since we spoke last time?
Yeah. So,
I'm
in general, some people, like when you ask them about what happened, might be really stuck in details and about sharing the content. This particular client didn't share the content, but it was it was lots of inputs on how level, but nothing specific. So and the coach is putting his attention on what are his takeaways of learning, which is a good idea in general.
I'm really getting this feeling of being closer to being ready to maybe moving that to making that switch, I should say, into a management role, right? I mean, I've been a technical contributor for the majority of my career, basically last probably 20 years, if we look at it that way. And I'm starting to getting the signals that I'm probably ready to make the switch. For example, I had some nice discussions with some of my peers, right, who are also technical folks, and we had some chats about career stuff, and two of them actually asked me, so are you going to be our manager soon? I would love for that to happen. I would love for you to be my boss. I'm like, okay, you really think I could do that? So maybe there is something to it, right? And so I do feel like I'm getting there emotionally as well, right? And some of the trainings you had recommended, I'm working through them, still in progress, but I think I learned a couple of interesting things there, to be honest. But on the other hand, I'm really to try to see what are the really concrete, specific next steps for me to move on with that. I'm a bit struggling with that. I'm in this bubble now where I think, oh, maybe I could become a manager, but now what do I need to really get done for this to really be successful?
Okay. So he's putting focus now on the action steps as some kind of potential desired outcomes of this outcome of this situation. And what you could hear here is like there was a external reference that some people were sharing their comments about Mark's potential engagement of as a manager. Yeah. So this is, but in general, what you could observe is that the client is really like strong on how level. So when it comes to managerial coaching, this might be an issue that clients, in this case, team members, might not be so open to go up or to go down, and can stay for a longer period of time in this area of political correctness of how trying to avoid any kind of specifics or going too much internally. And this is why I really think that managerial coaching is one of the most difficult forms of coaching.
Okay, I mean, before we get into some specific and concrete stuff, so right now in your state of mind, how do you perceive yourself on the, let's say, mid to long run? How do you see yourself?
Yeah.
It's very good.
So again, manager is putting his attention on future, and this how you perceive yourself can be questioned on any logical level. It depends on where the client would get with the answer, but without too much spending time on what is happening nowadays. Client gets coaches put his focus on future, and hopefully he will get some basic inspiration around this this topic. So we are in this stage here.
Question. It's really fun. I mean, we started discussing this topic of management path in my career, I don't know, probably 2 years ago or something. And if I think back even further than that, maybe when I started my career in Microsoft like 8 years ago,
the question was really future oriented, and the client is getting back, so in past. So what happened? And like in such cases, what is important is to take to get try to recognize what is the emotion behind, but like logic and facts around these things that are past oriented, not so much relevant. It's so try to get the connection to how client feels about it, and especially, and maybe like some takeaways and some learning, something valuable that the client get from these experiences that client is sharing. Also, be careful for someone who already showed qualities on how level. Again, it might be lots of abstract thinking, and then time wasting in terms of 30 minutes, how long the session is. So as a coach, you need to be ready to stop your client if it takes longer than you feel it's enough in a given conversation.
I was like, I'm never going to be a manager. It's not something that I would find pleasure in, honestly. And that is really started to change probably 5 years ago. And I see some, reflecting upon that, I see some correlation with having kids and stuff. So because our kids are small, I already told that to Pedja and Celia, right? So I see some parallels there, and somehow it kind of makes me feel like, if I'm trying to be a good dad, there's probably some parallels that would actually serve me well. Also being a good leader and being a good manager. And I feel like I'm making progress on that. I honestly also feel like it's much more of a journey than a real destination, if I'm being honest. It's probably a continuous thing that you kind of work on, and you try to sort it out all the time. And yeah, that's where I feel I'm standing. So I would love to jump into an opportunity like that now.
Okay. The question was past-oriented, but then future-oriented, but then we got a past-oriented answer. And then there is a couple of metaphors like dad, manager, and journey. So I don't know if I would use any of this right now. However, I would have them in mind, especially this one, a journey. It's a nice metaphor, as if I heard it well. So for being technical contributor or an expert was more than 10 years. So then it is a journey for him. And then a good question, I don't know if right away or maybe somewhere later might be, okay, so having this journey as something that you are already having. So from being a technical contributor to manager, what you can see for yourself in future, where the journey goes from here. Yeah. And it will be an interesting question on higher logical level, especially as in managerial coaching. It's not so easy to open those higher logical level questions.
So and from what I'm hearing, it's kind of you did a lot of reflection on the discussion we had in the last part. So how you feel now about your state of?
Okay, good. So reflection on past, and then this emotional question about present moment. As you know, feelings are doorways to values. So maybe it might open again a further discussion on the level of why after exploration of feelings. Depends, of course, on the answer.
I think I feel if you'd asked me like 12 months ago and said, hey, Mark, there's an opportunity for you to lead this team of fellow architects, I would have panicked. quite honestly. I was like in a state of mind, I would say, yeah, I would love to do it. I'm not sure if I could do it. 12 months later, now here we are. I think also thanks to the discussions we have had over this period, I made significant progress with that. I still feel like it would be a challenge, but a positive challenge that I'm actually thinking that I could really live up to the expectation. So, being in the role that I've been in for years, this technical architect role, I really feel I could bring so much of the experience I have gained from there and help my colleagues, my fellow, cloud architects with that. And the thing I also discovered is I've always been the technical person, and I still find great joy in that. But I also realized over the last 1 or 2 years, I find more interest in sort of the business side of it as well. So, not only dig deep into a technology because, let's say, AI is super fancy now and I want to understand it and bring it to our customers, but also look at the business side of it. So what is in it for our company? How should we prioritize it versus other workload? These kind of more real management and business strategy topics really starting to get into my mind. And I would love to make, a jump, so to speak, or a step in my career where I can also learn on that side and hopefully contribute to a successful business in a broader sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if I'm
this
curious,
is very interesting, because this who question is, of course, a difficult question, and especially it's very difficult in a business setting. And a client in this case said, like, I was always technical person, and I still am, and you know, like it's a. But there is something new something else that I'm interested in, and he says some business topics, and so you can ask here. So, like, I just wonder, like, as you said, you were a technical person in Styria. What kind of person are you today? Or what kind of person is emerging in front of you? I mean, this might be this who question in a business setting that came as a result of client's answer.
correctly, you're struggling. I mean, from one side you feel ready, from other side you're struggling for next steps.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
So how do you see yourself ready?
How do I see us? What do you mean by that?
I mean, how do you see? How are you ready for the in your mind?
Like, this is interesting, because we talked here about business topics, and the coach went to higher logical level question, but you know, like, the form of the question is not really like a luckily phrased, if I can say it like that. But the thing is that he's going up here with this question, how you see yourself, or I don't know. I mean, obviously it's not their first language, so it's question if it is really like how easy is for someone to phrase the sentence. But definitely coach, it's good intention in terms of where he goes with the question.
I think if the thing that I'm missing is, like, to really, you know, if our SLT member would approach me now, Roger, right? He came to me and say, "Hey, Mark, we have an opening. I want you to do it." The thing that I'm missing right now, I feel like that I would need to have in order to be really confident I can actually do it, is now, like, proper, you know, a bit of an experience, so to speak, in managing, like, a small group of people, something like that. Because that's something I've never had as you know, in my career up till this point, right? I'm positive I could do it. But there's these indications, as I said, from colleagues that say, "Oh, you would be such a great manager," and these kind of things, and which lead me to believe maybe they're right. Maybe I could actually do it. So the thing that's missing for me now is this final piece.
And for yourself, I mean,
again, like it's external reference and external inputs. So it's besides this external inputs, it will be very useful also to check what is this internal feeling. What about yourself, and how you will know that you are ready for something. So it's potential way to continue this conversation.
Side that what your colleagues are telling you around potentially being a manager, but for you personally, what do you think that the management role will bring it to you?
Yeah,
personally?
I think
this is the question, and of course, whenever you can challenge the client's way of thinking, it's more than welcome, especially if you know someone very well and the rapport is good. So potentially you might say something like, I hear, like, for the second time you were mentioning other people. And I think once you're like getting in this manager role, so when you will know that there is to follow your own instincts, your own experience, or your own feelings without external inputs. So just to play a little bit with this, it depends, of course, on the level of the rapport you have with your client.
think it would be a great learning experience, honestly, because it's extending on something, based on the foundation I have on the technical side. How can I expand that? And B, I find just honestly great joy in like working closely with others and helping them in becoming more successful. So anything that I can do in this like, let's say, journey to elevate others, right, to make them shine, is just something that actually gives me great joy, I find.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And Mark, if we bring attention
and again, it depends on rapport. But like I would challenge this way of thinking, because like helping others and learning can be part of so many different professions or even hobbies. Now I said, well, we talk here about managerial role, like why, like how these things are related to managerial role, and what is really unique about managerial role that for you this might be a valuable journey. So these are potential ways to challenge clients thinking around this topic.
To this specific session today.
Mm-hmm.
So what would be valuable outcome of today's session?
Look, and for me, this is really okay. In total, there was like 9 minutes of exploration. And then somewhere at the end of this stage of exploration, coach asks for the contract. And again, still have in mind that this is managerial coaching, because it's a little bit different, because a manager is involved in a topic and then he has the lots of how to say he's involved in the content. So in this particular case, I mean, like for whole stage of inspiration, there was not involvement in the content from a manager side, which is quite okay. And here he goes with a contract for this particular session. So let's hear where the client went with the answer.
Good question. I think, sort of my state of mind where I'm right now, as I'm saying, I'm really having a bit of a challenge identifying what is the thing that I need to get done next, very specifically. Right now, I have this relatively fuzzy vision of, I want to become, a manager, but what are the things that I need to wrap my head around? And one of the pivotal and one of the central things for that is really what you and I talked about in the past, that there's this different type of management, if you will, right? In a classical world, and where you just manage a business, maybe by geography, maybe by product, whatever. And one of the things I'm trying to wrap my head around is, should I become a manager, specific to basically the people who are now my colleagues, the fellow architects who are in the data and AI field, so still having that technical flavor in there? Or should I be more on the free floating, not having nothing to do with AI anymore, just structuring a thing by different things? So here I would really like to get some clarity, which path is like better suited for me personally. That's something I have not been able to find an answer to, really.
So it's interesting answer because like he's going from action to a managerial role, then to different paths that are moving to different managerial roles. So it's in general a good position. So there is a path on 1, 2, and 3, and many others. Because he's now struggling to find the answer on this question. This is like, I don't know, I'm not sure. And I mean, it's usually good indicator. And it is way better than if client will immediately say, well, I exactly know what I want. And this is what is connected to what Faruk asked at the beginning of our call. Like once when people, if during the session people always know what they want, they're always clear what they want, and they already give this answer, I exactly know what I want. Usually it comes from this area here, conscious mind. And then the question is, okay, so what is actually the added value? why somebody came for the session, or why we are wasting here time if the client is if the client already knows everything. So then, and when the person moves down here, well, then usually we hear this kind of struggling with, is it maybe path, is it my managerial role, is it maybe action steps, and then it's simply like client needs more some time to really define what he or she wants.
I mean, I know that we talked a lot about this two specific flavors of management, and this is pretty relevant. And now you mentioned clarity for those two parts. So what do you exactly mean by that? So what in this session can help you move on, getting closer to that clarity for you?
So, and of course, since this is managerial coaching, there are connected dots from the previous session that we don't know what happened. But here is one thing that the client uses this abstract word clarity, which is on the level of how, and then the coach in future. So like somewhere here, like through time, when explores what exactly this means. So to put it down on the ground clarity, which is completely different than if I say, like, what do you mean by clarity now? What do you mean by clarity now in the present moment? If there will be clarity here, it would mean, okay, I'll give you the examples from past, and then like there is no any added value, because this is something that happened and it is related to certain context. But in this way, it is completely different. So ideally, client would come up with some kind of ideas what will happen in future, and or what will be some future indicators of clarity. So we don't know what the client will answer, but when it comes to question, it's a really good one. Versus talking in the present moment, and the coach asks, so what do you mean by clarity today? It's absolutely relevant question. So like, what do I mean? What do I mean? It will go here, and then the whole session will be stopped for a while client gives some content from the past, and then again going back into future. Of course, there is no how to say, we cannot be sure that client will not give some past examples, but still this question is in a good area. It's a good question.
And I think what I really read is like very specifically, concretely, if you will, some actions that can bring me closer to create clarity on this like the management type of the future that I want to do. So it can really like keep me moving, accelerate me, if that makes sense.
Okay. So you were saying like some actions that can bring you closely to making sure that your clarity is there, or making a decision where do you want to go, some actions around that.
Yeah, pretty much. I think that would actually be very, very helpful for me in this point.
Case, okay. Coach is introducing this decision term, but like we don't know what they were doing in the previous session, and still this is managerial coaching. So there is some kind of inputs that are coming from managers' side. Yeah. So it's for managerial coaching, it's okay. For regular coaching, I would avoid any kind of inputs from coaches' side.
And now think about the clarity that you mentioned, or the fuzziness clarity, whatever. In terms of your state of mind, on a scale from 1 to 10, where are you right now? in terms of the clarity for your journey to move on?
Well, okay, this is very nicely put, because action is the best possible result of this session, or the contract of the session, are action steps. And for me, this is indicator of good listening. Why? Because the state of mind the client mentioned previously is influencing clarity, and I will know that I have a clarity with defining action steps. So basically, clarity is beside between state of mind and action steps. So let's then, okay, start somewhere, and then he starts on something that is on a higher level of abstraction than the clarity.
On a scale from 1 to 10, I would say I feel a little bit like the weather outside, like fog. You know, there's limited visibility. I can see the immediate next 100 meters, but I don't see like very far. So probably I would be like middle of the road, say like 5-ish, 5, maybe 5.5, something like that, somewhere there. Okay. That makes sense.
And imagine after this session, the ladder is a little bit clearer. So you are.
And I like this using clients' metaphors. Yeah. So so let's see where a client goes from here.
You have some more clarity. So what would be on the scale 1 to 10 that you get out of this session in terms of clarity for you?
Well, honestly, I think, well, that's just how I think. But I think there's never going to be a 10. A 10 today is a 9 tomorrow and an 8, next year, because everything is changing. So if I get to something like an 8, 7 to 8, that's very good progress, and probably as much as clarity I can realistically gain.
And think about that 8.
So I would remember this one. Everything is changing, because it's a belief, and it can have both positive and negative implications. So I would keep it somewhere in my. Maybe I will not write it for a client, but I will remember it.
To the 5 that you mentioned right now. So and imagine you're in the state of 8. So what's different there compared to the 5?
It's nice question. So 5 versus 8, and coach asked it in very abstract level or very open level. So what is different what is the difference between 5 and 8? So it can be it can be who, in what way you are different, in how do you feel differently, what do you know, and what is it that you know. Like, it can be answered in many different ways, and then the coach gives the client possibility to choose the way how to answer this question.
I mean, it's quite a jump, I would say. 8 is like almost there. Right now, I feel like a middle of the road. Maybe it's like, maybe I will have performed my, if you want to call it that, due diligence, in terms of feeling confident that what I'm doing is like going in the right direction. It's not about, having made a final choice, but having reassurance that the actions that are moving me, to make that decision, really.
Okay.
So, and then also feel, kind of empowered, if you will, that sense of motivation to really get there.
So again, it's interesting about like client like to look back and to check action steps, and then to like kind of make sure that these actions are okay. And a potential question that you can ask here, just help me to understand, is it now who is talking? Is it like this technical contributor is talking, or manager or leader, or whose idea is this? Like reviewing of action steps, and especially if you're in a managerial role, and then what kind of managerial styles are welcome in the organization. So then you can again be playful here, and then you can say, well, if you just go back to this idea of journey, and the journey continues to happen. this thing that he mentioned somewhere at the beginning of the session. And then through time, you really become like a really experienced manager. In what way then you will approach this particular topic that we are discussing today? Yeah. Why I'm suggesting these things, because, you know, like reviewing action steps, it's a little bit of kind of, am I doing things right? I would like to assess myself, and maybe it is more from the technical perspective important than from managerial perspective, and I'm working on my managerial role. So I will just ask these questions.
Tell me more about this, what you call due diligence. What do you mean by due diligence for you, Mark?
It's the wrong term. Due diligence.
So now we talk about the assessment of what is happening, what happened in past. So basically, if client puts attention on what happened, so like assessing these things. You know, this, what do you mean by that? I mean, in this setting, I wouldn't do it. As I said, that clarity in a set from the position of future is a good idea by putting it on the ground. You know, like going back and assessing what am I doing things right or wrong, kind of can be some maybe some better ways to proceed with the question, with the next question, than assessing than explaining what assessment of action steps actually means.
Just thought it's what came to mind first. You know, it's like I feel there's this like area or if you will, circle of people that I have already engaged with on my journey. You know, and then maybe it's also about extending that circle, that I can get additional insights from them, if that makes any sense. You know, and hopefully, if I can extend that circle, maybe I will, probably some people are going to challenge me back on my idea, on my vision of becoming a manager, but I'm sure that I can also learn from them, and with that get more confidence in, you know, that this path that I'm taking is really the path that makes sense for me.
So you
like
said
here,
some additional
I would really challenge this way of thinking, because for some time, client is bringing additional people as a reference for, or as a as some kind of checking point if he is on the right track. So what I would ask, I would say, well, okay, so again, are you talking as an expert, or you're talking now as a manager? And once when you get in this role of manager, what might be the way to assess such a situation, and how many people are enough? You know, like you already have 2, so is it an hour 2, 22, 222? And then when will be the moment to check yourself internally? What is the right path for you, and when you are ready, and then slowly put attention from others to himself. And then what is then, we can go back to this state of mind. What is it? What is the right state of mind that will actually help you to really know that you are or you are not on the right track without external inputs?
Who can challenge you, and who can also give you from you can learn. So who else is in that picture? I mean, on top of who are speaking today. So who else is there that can help you achieve that?
I mean, as you know, I have like my regular, you know, one-to-ones with my mentor, right? So on top of that, let's think. I mean, I also have one guy I regularly speak to outside of the company, which has always been interesting. But it's a good question. Maybe Roger. So Roger, who's like your manager, right? So my skip level manager and our SLT member, or organization leader, if you will. but I don't think I ever had this conversation with him, expressing towards him that this is what I want to do. This is what my aspiration is be. And he's a very experienced guy, as you know, with his history in, some of the big banks here in Switzerland. And maybe it could help having that chat with him. And maybe he's also going to challenge me to some extent, but hopefully in a positive sense.
Okay, so you said Roger, which is a good. I think
Okay.
you have with him regular.
He's for the second time mentioning word challenge, and one of the ICF competencies is direct communication, where we put in front of the client patterns. And okay, second time is not a pattern. We need one more time, but this one again had an emotional reaction with it. So what I might ask is, while I hear you for the second time, there is a challenge, and then you're smiling a little bit, whether there is some kind of emotional reaction. And I would like leave a space to a client. So what it is about challenge that for you is triggering these emotional responses?
Monthly or quarterly, I don't know.
Yeah, it's more like I would say 3 times a year kind of thing,
Okay, but who else can help you?
It's not so easy, man. Okay, I mean, okay, this is like up the org chart. So what else? Or maybe someone on our side. Maybe I could ask, or maybe I could reach out to some.
The support system, like sometimes it's or the people around you, but later, like it needs to be connected to action steps. So, but with all this exploration of other people, again, somewhere at the end, we should put attention on him, on clients. So what about you? What do you think? What is it and he mentioned this state of mind. So what is the state of mind that is needed in order to proceed with similar situations in future and so on?
Like Carlo, who was basically having the same role I had, right? And who recently made this transition, or maybe still in the transition period, if you will, from a individual contributor on the technical side like myself to a manager role. Maybe I could do that.
Okay.
So yeah, no, it's actually, why not? In the past I always had technical conversations with him, but maybe now we can expand that, right?
Yeah. Okay. So mentioned Roger. You mentioned Carlo from Persona's perspective. And also, Mark, I think you mentioned a couple of minutes back something related to, you want to do some real life or hands-on experience. So what resources you need in order for that to happen?
Okay. So, like again, it's a future-oriented and abstract enough question, as we are now coming slowly to the end of the session, putting things on the ground. And I like these abstract questions because it gives a space to a client to choose his directions. Resource can mean anything. So I would say this one is also, again, good open question.
What I meant by that was basically, I feel like I did a lot of, learning in terms of ramping up, getting into the topic. Is it through the coaching sessions with you? Is it through the discussions I have with my mentor? Is it through reading books and, all these kind of things? But I feel like what I'm lacking is, like, if you will, real world experience, right? So, like really leading, as I said, a small team, maybe even just one person, 2 people or something like that.
How can you make that
so
more
this
concrete?
One I
how can you
like? Why? Because client really showed strength on how level. So it is definitely client's strength. And then the question is, okay, so coming slowly to the second part of the session, so how to put it on the ground. Before getting into that area of putting things on the ground, maybe I would still explore a little bit this, what about you? This was missing. And I would say that this client is very responsive. I mean, I assume that the client would, how to say, be ready to explore this area. And especially, you know, like if we are preparing him for the managerial role, like certain level of self-awareness is always welcome. So before putting things on the ground, maybe I will put more attention about clients' internal things, as client was talking a lot about other people.
Maybe I can speak to my manager, or also Carlo, as I said, now manager, and maybe we can find a way of how I could, you know, act as some new hires manager or something like that. I don't know if we have the processes in place or anything like that, but let's say if somebody else is joining the company, I could act as this person's manager. So it would give me real world exposure, if you will, to becoming, well, at least for the first 6 months, maybe this new hires manager, you know, and I could feel what it's like, what are the questions that come up that would probably equip me, you know, like with the real world tool belt, so to speak, at least for these kind of conversations.
Like, what you can hear again, like the client is coming with some ideas. It's not just straightforward. Is struggling to find the answer. Lots of maybes, which is good indicator in general.
There will also be tough conversations. I don't know, since it kind of depends on the person and the setup and how well everything is going to go. But maybe that would get me, you know, a bit of a head start with real management competence, if you will.
Okay. So now we said, or you mentioned engaging with Roger.
Yep. And Carlo as well. Yeah.
Talking to Carlo, and then trying to get hands-on experience from either with your manager within your team or with Carlo.
Steps. So it's doesn't need to be always at the end of the session ask for action steps. You know, like somewhere in the middle of a session, client came out with some action steps, and we just write them down. And again, it's the indicator of listening.
Yeah.
Anything else that is coming to your mind, Mark?
Well, just do you think this last point, like, you know, being, like, say, an acting manager for somebody joining the company, do you think this is doable at all, or do you think this is like something, you know, that's not even possible? What's your thought on that?
So listen,
again, managerial coaching. And it's very difficult, like, to jump from the role of manager into the role of advisor. And of course, like in this case, client doesn't know if this is possible or not, and manager knows this thing. So it's a good idea if we can leave this answer for outside of the session, or maybe even tomorrow, just not to interrupt the process of thinking, and especially as a client has a lots of focus externally, like there were a question about the people who should how to say, give him feedback in his or if he is on the right track, and then so many things. So I would avoid if possible sharing my thoughts within a session. So I would say, well, if it is okay with you, let's leave it for one of our next meetings, and I will share my opinion around this topic. So just not to disturb his way of thinking, that his thinking processes.
I think it's doable. Mainly the question come back to you is like, you know, how that would bring you forward. What would be the value for you in that if you have a hands-on
it's a nice way
experience?
how coach answered. What about you? What is it that you will get out of this?
I think it would honestly it would make me more confident in my own abilities to become a manager, because I feel like at least I have had this real world exposure to it. And also I think if I'm putting myself into the position now of whoever is going to be making the decision who will be a new manager, and they hear my name, and at least they know, well, at least you haven't managed a big department or anything, but at least you have this sort of starting experience. I think that should also improve my chances, honestly. So I'm happy to hear that you think it could be doable. So I will pick that up with, maybe with Carlo, maybe with my manager. Let's see really where the opportunity arises first, if that makes sense.
And if you in such a competence as a manager, the most important will be that then it is really doable. But if you just said it for the purpose of skipping a direct answer and moving to the good question, this is what might happen, that the client hear that this is doable, and then the client builds his next steps based on your input.
So it should not.
Yeah, this is quite some movement happening. Yeah. So for me, this is like, I have 3 very specific things that I should start looking into, and I hope I find a way to do all of them, because it's a busy period, as you know. And customers, even though we're approaching the end of year, customers realize, we have budget left, we need to spend it. And this is like, a bit of a messy period as well.
Okay, but it's good that you kind of define three actions. Yeah. So let me challenge you a little bit here. So how are you going to make sure you do them, you execute them?
So I'll probably need to add a sense of urgency to it, to be honest. So I have my next quarterly or 4 monthly meeting with Roger actually just next week, right before Christmas. So maybe that's a good time to bring that up, to really open up to him, and say, hey, aside from the things we have discussed in the past, which are more actually also on the tactical side, with some customers on the strategic end, maybe also open up to him and say, look, I really think I would love to become a manager in our organization. What do you think? What are the things from your perspective that you think I should work on? And Carlo, I was just speaking to the other day, actually. So I can try to ping him and see if he has 30 minutes or whatever time in his calendar, so we can talk about it. I don't think it's a big deal, to be honest. I think that should be doable. If not next week, then maybe after Christmas. And then the third thing, which was the onboarding, I think realistically that will have to wait until January, because I will need to, speak with Carlo first, maybe talk to Zoran, my manager, right, and see what he has to say, see what the situation is on our onboarding. So when are we going to start new people, right? I know we have one colleague joining, but I think that's in February or March, which would actually be a good point in time. So I will try to reach more clarity, let's say probably first week of January when I come back. And I will try to fix something on my calendar and shoot an email out. And then, we have Cortana telling me, hey, have you done this? You should really follow up on these actions, which is always annoying. So she will have my back, I guess.
Cortana is a good commitment reminder.
Yeah, it's a really test sometimes, but it works very well.
Encouraging you that when you define the action steps, don't just stay with action steps. Support your client to really build strong action steps, and then you shift a little bit the energy from exploration and then exploring future into more of energy of movement. What specifically, until when, and so on. In this case, like they're working for a while, so the coachee is already trained, so he's coming with these specifics, but like I would put more attention on until when and how really you can do something even before Christmas break or before you come back from holidays.
Listen, Mark, we have 5 more minutes. For today, it's nice that you have committed to these actions. So looking like, stage 5, stage 8, where are you right now?
I would say moving towards an 8, right? Maybe not quite at 8 yet, maybe in the 7, but I feel like the things we discussed, the things we agreed on. If I going to do this, I will definitely be in the 8 area, so to speak. So I feel like I do have a lot more clarity, and sort of the fog is clearing up a little bit, if you will. Yeah.
Checking the progress.
Okay, good. So, and just before we close, I would like to ask you, how was this session, today's session, valuable to you?
Well, I feel like I have a more, let's say, if that makes sense, I have a clearer plan of the path ahead. So what the things that I need to work on, or the things that I need to do over the next weeks to make progress in my journey, if that makes sense, So that's definitely valuable for me, and I appreciate you taking the time to do this.
Anything else, man?
What's funny is I feel like it may sound stupid and no disrespect, but I feel like I have given somehow the answers to these questions to myself. You're asking the right questions and making me think, and I'm like, oh, I could do this, I could do that, and then sometimes I almost feel like I should have done that myself. But I'm happy to have this, to have you pulling my buttons, if you will.
This is what managerial coaching is about, and especially with this type of client who is responsive, I still I would still go up. I would still invite him to explore more about himself. As a client is talking, as he's sharing right now, kind of he already knew what he should do in terms of actions. Which is on the lower logical levels, and where where it could make a bigger difference is somewhere on a higher logical levels. And this is something that I feel that maybe I'm wrong, of course, that the client had a capacity to get these things for himself, especially after lots of talking about other references. What do you think about it? And there was a chance to turn it around a couple of times. Oh, this technical person and what other person and so on. So, and of course, connecting with this metaphor of dead manager journey, this came from the beginning, and I would use it definitely. It was at least in my perception, it was. It could be used in this session.
So it's really good. I feel like, as I said, the fog is starting to clear a little bit. And you know what? It makes me feel like more positive, and not positive, maybe more confident. That's the word. More confident in the fact that I want to go there, and I have a clearer path, a clearer street to walk now, if that makes sense. Yeah. So it's really good.
Okay, good. Listen, I took some notes, and I will share the notes with you afterwards. But for today's session, I think we can conclude it. Thanks a lot for your time, Mark. Stay safe.
Yeah,
say hello to your family, and we speak then next time.
I will. You too. Take care. It was good seeing you, man, and happy holidays if we don't reconnect before. Right?
Thank you, Mark.
So that was the session. In my perception, very nice example of managerial coaching. As I said at somewhere at the beginning, in managerial coaching, usually it's there is a lots of communication on how level, and not so many possibilities to explore higher logical levels and not so much commitment in terms of I mean, there is a commitment, but like this is what is usually initiated from manager side. So this one I really like, and I think it is it was done in a really nice way. All elements were there. Everything was aligned with ICF standards, and it is a good example of managerial coaching. A coach managed to stay in the coach position in most of the time. So there was only one comment, direct answer on direct question. And in such cases, you know, like if this is a relationship between two equal people, I would really suggest you that you either you know, like say what you mean and then continue with the next question. You say, well, let's keep it for our next discussion. What I wouldn't suggest is that you try to avoid the answer just because you are coaching someone, because it might endanger rapport. Yeah, so that is the session.